Hello and welcome to the Not the Old Firm YouTube channel. My name is Ben Banks. Today's video will look ahead to Scotland's 3 matches in World Cup 2022 qualifying coming over the next 6 days. First of all, as you watch this on Wednesday, the 1st of September, away to Denmark, Euro 2020 semi-finalists. 3 days later, we have Moldova at Hampden Park before the return game against Austria. 3 days later to cap off a busy 6 days for Steve Clarke's depleted Scotland squad. So we hope you enjoy. Apologies for the camera quality on my end. In this one, it looks like I'm shooting it from some sort of bunker somewhere. But yeah, the lighting at this time of night and stuff's not my usual. So apologies if I look a bit odd, but you should still be able to hear me, see some of me at least. But yeah, won't be much of me speaking in this. We have got, as you can tell by the thumbnail and perhaps the title of this video, we are going to focus on the new boys in the squad and do the preview a wee bit differently. So it's not just me running through blow by blow of what could happen over the next sort of 6 days with Scotland. We'll give you a bit of insight into that before we move into sort of the main segments of our videos, where we're going to hear from Hamilton's Academy Director George Cairns, St Johnstone manager Callum Davidson, and recently called up Scotland goalkeeper himself, Liam Kelly. But to go through the games, well, a rundown of the games, at least we'll do reactions to all 3 games, starting with Denmark on the Wednesday night and then the Moldova and Austria games. We'll give the breakdown of the games a bit more depth in those videos. For this one, just to give you an insight into the Scotland squad, yeah, there's not a lot of it left. So there isn't as much to give you. Scotland travelled to Denmark with an 18-man squad due to a range of fitness and COVID-19 issues. Stephen O'Donnell's one that's impacted by COVID-19 issues. I don't think he's actually got the virus, but because of a time where he perhaps had it, there's a bit of grey area. Graham Alexander said they had a non-COVID related illness 2 weeks ago when Mull put out the Premier Sports Cup by Dundee. He hasn't played for Mull since. It wasn't thought to be COVID, and then Steve Clarke, when briefing the media before this Denmark game, saying a COVID related rule means Stephen O'Donnell can't get into Denmark. So there's a bit of confusion there. I'm not really too sure what the situation is now with Stephen O'Donnell, but he won't be playing in Denmark anyway. That's as much as we know, and he probably will be back for the Moldova game on Saturday. As well as that, Nathan Patterson is missing the Denmark game due to isolation. So is John McGinn, which is a big blow. Austin McPhee as well. Aston Villa impacted by COVID-19 issues. Austin McPhee just appointed Scotland coach and Aston Villa set-piece specialist. Both him and McGinn of that club are missing through isolation. Again, don't know if McPhee's back for these games. Stephen Naismith has came into the coaching staff as his temporary replacement, but McGinn will be back for the Moldova and Austria games, as well as Nathan Patterson. In terms of injuries, got Scott McTominay, Stuart Armstrong, Greg Taylor, and James Forrest. Kevin Nisbet as well is going to miss the first game anyway against Denmark. So no troubles to seek when it comes to injuries. Scotland do have an 18-man squad, 3 of which will be goalkeepers, so 15 outfield players. It is very, very light. It still should be a fairly decent team, but I can't help but think that, at least in the Denmark game, of course, Scotland go into this game with 5 points. The opening 3 qualification games, a draw with Austria at Hampden, followed by a disappointing draw, I think it would be fair to say, away to Israel, before then beating the Faroe Islands. So they're going into these games really needing to get points in every game. Moldova, it's a certainty. They have to win that. If they don't, then there'll be complete anarchy. And they need to win in Austria. I think they had to win either of the home version or the away version of the Austria tie. I think that has to be a win, and they need to get at least a point from Denmark to stand any chance of making Qatar 2022. So that's a brief insight into what will be happening in the games and what's at stake. In terms of the new recruits, if you will, to the Scotland squad, we have Liam Kelly, as already mentioned, not a particularly new one. He has been in the Scotland squad before, but yet to make his first appearance for Scotland, and he hasn't been in the squad for a wee while, so we're going to claim him as a new face. Who's certainly a new face is Xander Clarke. There's been a bit of reshuffle in the goalkeeper department. John McLaughlin is out, Rangers goalkeeper, and David Marshall has been relegated to third choice at Derby, meaning that his involvement in the Scotland squad won't be what it was when he was number 1 at the Euros, until he starts playing again regularly for Derby. He was linked with a move away from Derby's third choice there. He was linked with perhaps going to Liverpool as their backup. Doesn't look like that's happening as I record this. It's 11:15 and the English transfer market is about to shut. So it looks like David Marshall, and with the ages that he's in, he's sort of mid-30s now. Yeah, you wonder whether we have seen the last of David Marshall in a Scotland jersey. Zander Clark steps up and it's well deserved. From his double heroics at St Johnstone last season. He started the season very strongly, so much deserved for him. And he is the other goalkeeper that's been called up. Craig Gordon will be the number one. And in midfield, to cover the different losses there, you will have Lewis Ferguson, which will segue nicely into our chat with Academy Director at Hamilton Cairns. Lewis Ferguson still at Aberdeen, was linked with different moves to the Premier League. I think Watford had a big bounce back. Didn't happen, but despite having a transfer request, he started the season just like Zander Clark, really, really strongly. George Cairns identified him when he was a young kid, when he was about 13 or 14, when he was released by Rangers, and George Cairns picked him up and does what Hamilton does with young players, to take them in, to give them their first team chance, and they either sink or swim. And Lewis Ferguson has certainly grown into a very terrific football player, and he is Aberdeen's probably best player arguably just now, and he will also go on to be a fully fledged Scotland international in many years. This will just be one of a few call-ups he will get, no doubt, and yeah, he will go to the Premier League one day. A view that I and George Cairns shared, but caught with him last week once the Scotland squad was announced. Interestingly enough, Zander Clark was at Hamilton as a youngster, but was released and went a long way around to get his way to St Johnstone, where he is now. But spoke to George for a wee bit. Here's what we spoke about. With the Scotland announcement yesterday, I know you've had like guys like Declan Gallagher in there who have been through the academy before, but with Lewis and Zander as well. I know Zander didn't eventually want to play for the club, but were they two the bigger ones that you've perhaps worked with?
Yeah, I worked with both those players. Lewis probably a wee bit more closer than the rest of them. Got Lewis at under 14s. Being released from Rangers, obviously at under 14s, and Lewis is a great kid. I'm really, really happy for him. It was his birthday yesterday as well, so a kind of double celebration. His birthday obviously announced for the Scotland squad, which is a huge achievement for him. Huge achievement, which is fantastic. Fantastic for himself and fantastic for him and his mum and dad. So he's certainly done me proud as a coach. It's worked really close with him, and I'm really, really chuffed for him. Absolutely brilliant.
It must be particularly nice when guys like Lewis, who you have worked with like day to day for so many years, worked them through to the first team, and then they do eventually get the rewards of playing for their country potentially next month.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Lewis. If I look back, Donald Park was the first person to introduce Lewis in 1999. So under 19s football, Donald had picked up the phone and said to me, "George, do you have any players there that's worth a wee look just in case I've missed any?" And to be fair, I says, "Yeah, we've got Lewis Ferguson. I think he's worth a look at." Donald, and to be fair to Donald took him in, and to be fair to Lewis hasn't looked back. Donald loved him. So it's a big thank you for Donald as well, because Donald obviously brought him into the Scotland fold as well at under 19. So it's a big thank you to Donald Park for believing that Lewis was good enough, and obviously he's progressed since then. Obviously played for our first team, and then obviously sold to Aberdeen, and he's done remarkably well at Aberdeen as well. I try to speak to Lewis as much as possible, and I'd give him a wee courtesy call yesterday to congratulate him, to be fair.
Can you identify like guys who are going to go on to become like Scotland? I know Scotland international, perhaps a bit more, but who can go on to the next level at that age?
I think that's a tough thing to do. You can certainly try and identify your good players as young as possible, but in our academy, there's always one or two that will come out the pack that you never thought, there's a good player there, or I never thought that could have. So it's quite hard. Yourself. If you've got a good attitude, and you train hard, you work hard, and you have the will to go and try and get something, then you've always got a chance. But there's always one or two that will come out and surprise you. But Lewis was a good player for us. He was a great player for us, for my academy especially. And I always felt that Lewis was good enough. He was great at what he did. He applied himself remarkably well. There was never a chore too big for Lewis to go and do. And I'm really chuffed for him.
It seems like from speaking to him a few times, he seems like quite a level-headed. Like for his age, like he's played 200 nearly odd games, he's still only just cleared 21, 22, so he's got a lot of experience for the ages.
Yeah, he has got a lot of experience because he's played a lot of games, and I think if you play a lot of games, you're going to gain experience. You always have players round about him as well. that'll help him. I think Scott Brown will be a big factor for him as well. You know, Scott's played at the highest level as well, won a lot of trophies, done a lot in his career as well. So having these kind of players run about, you can only bring you on. You're only going to learn off these people, which is a great thing for any young player to have run about them. So it's a learning process, and if he can learn and pick these good habits up, you know, Lewis can go on and do great things for his country and for his club.
He's always been linked with pretty. I'm sure when you picked him up at 13, 14, you didn't ever think he'd probably be linked with seven-figure moves to the Premier League and stuff down south. But without taking the transfer fees and stuff out of it, do you think he has got the potential to sort of go to that level one day?
Of course he has, 100%. 100%. If there was a player I always thought could go to that level, Lewis Ferguson would always, you know, I always laugh and joke with the kids and always say, you know, academy team, Lewis would never be my academy team, be first on my list to go and represent myself in the academy and represent our first team. So would I think he would have got to that? Yeah, of course. You like to hope. You sometimes need a wee bit of luck as well, but you know, if you're a good player and you work hard each week, you know, people will notice that. People will look at him to see what kind of player he is. You know, he'll get you goals. He'll get you penalties, he'll get you free kicks. He's got a really, really sensible head on the middle of the park, and he's a digger as well. He'll go and win his challenges. He'll go and win the ball. He'll do the things that you ask a young player to go and do. So, you know, it's always onwards and upwards for myself. And, you know, I try and speak to him as much as possible, but he's done very, very well for himself. And honestly, really, really proud for him.
It must help you sell the club to guys who are coming in even as young as 9 and 10 that, you know, look at Lewis and James McArthur, I think down south, had made 300 appearances over the weekend for Crystal Palace, and he's their new captain with Patrick Vieira. So it's selling these type of stories, and Lewis is probably the new one you can sell to.
Yeah, of course. That's a huge achievement for James as well. You know, 300 appearances in the Premiership, that's fantastic. When you look at that, that's absolutely phenomenal. And what he's done as a player is done fantastically well as well, you know, so you can only commend that and say well done. You know, now club captain, it tells you the kind of player he is. You know, a new manager comes in and sees straight away, he's a captain for me, which tells you leaps and bounds. You know, James came through our system as well, and it's always great. Listen, it's great to see any player doing well. You know, you can go to the guys at Queen's Park. There was 6 academy kids involved in winning the championship there. You know, there's loads of players scattered all over the country. You know, Greg Docherty, you know, Ali Crawford. You know, there's players all over the place that represent our academy and have done extremely well.
4 players still active. You've got Chris McGinn, who's in the under-17s.
Yep.
You've got Jamie Hamilton, Lewis Smith. If they play this weekend, they're going to crack 50 appearances, and I don't think Jamie's. I think I'm older than Jamie, which probably says a lot.
There you go. I think I'm older as well.
Shows you that these guys are in and around the Scotland youth teams now, and they're perhaps as well the next ones. It's not just like it's going to be Lewis and then you're waiting. Of course,
you've got a lot of young talented players. Chris McGinn's played a couple of appearances for the first team as well. We have Adam McGowan as well, you know, who's made some first team appearances as well, which is fantastic for young kids. We have Gabriel Forsyth represented under 16s as well from our academy. So, you know, it's a great thing to go and represent your country. It's great for the club, and it's great, especially for the player, to go and represent their country and playing the sport that they actually try and do well at. But
I think as well, you can go the long way around as well. I don't think Xander quite made it at Hamilton, like goalkeeper wise, did he? But did he drop out the academy and then had to go
I think Frankie McAvoy was in charge of the academy at the time. Frankie and Liz was our director of youth at the time, and it's just one of those decisions that obviously it didn't go. You know, they felt maybe Xander wasn't going to make it, and you look at Xander now, you think, wow, he's done remarkably well. You know, I'll speak to Xander when we played him in the Premiership, which is a great achievement for himself as well. You know, and obviously to go and win 2 cups that's a fantastic achievement for a young player. I think he's also involved in the first Scottish Cup one as well, so he's got 3 winners' medals, you know, 2 Scottish Cups and a League Cup, which is fantastic for him. And whether they played part in this academy or not, you know, he came through part of our academy, it's always great to see. It's fantastic to see young guys getting a chance, you know, and there's nothing better.
Speaking of Xander Clark, now we've moved on from our section with George. Spoke to Callum Davidson last week as well about Xander Clark's call-up. A richly deserved bit of praise, a bit of reward for Xander Clark after his form, not just last season for St Johnstone, but in the last couple of seasons. And he has worked his way through the ranks at St Johnstone, and Davidson believes he could be a shining light for the youngsters coming through at McDermott Park.
Without a doubt, I think he's been phenomenal in big games. You know, we've played a lot of big games. We've talked about it here. He's played a lot of big games that mean a lot, and he's performed at a very high level. So for me, I don't think he'd do any more or his chances couldn't be any better for getting the squad. I'm absolutely thrilled he's been picked, and I'm really pleased for him and his family. Yeah, definitely. I think it's just shows you. I think we've got a couple of players here like that. You've got Stevie May, you've got Liam Gordon, Jason Kerr, Xander's one of them. So yeah, it's great. It just shows there's a pathway for young kids at this club. It shows that there is, if you have the right attitude, you listen, and you work extremely hard. I think that it is a pathway for players to come through here, and maybe do it slightly differently from other clubs, but it's proven successful, and it's great to see Xander. I think it's very, very rare that a St Johnstone player gets the call up, but it's due to the success of the team and Xander that he's there.
And finally, we'll move on to Liam Kelly, the Mull goalkeeper, called up alongside teammate Stephen O'Donnell and last season's teammate as well, Declan Gallagher, and potentially have three of, if you want to call it the back four, because it will be the three at the back again. If you want to call it the back four, including Kelly, you can potentially have three players who started for Mull in Mull's last game of the season. Is it? Yeah, and Mull's, they started together at some point. Mull, I don't think it's quite the last game of the season. Declan Gallagher dropped out of the squad by that point. It says moved to Aberdeen, but certainly lined up for Mull prominently last season, which I credit to the Fir Park club. But here's what Liam Kelly had to say ahead of joining up with Steve Clark's squad in Denmark.
Excited, I'm really proud to be called up. Of course, there's so many, so like I've always said, there's so many good goalkeepers. So when you're selected and you're picked based on merit, and you're over the moon, you're really pleased. And I really look forward to meeting up. My brother plays with Livingston, my younger brother plays with St Mirren. So we just talk about things all the time, talk about what we see, how we can probably try and get better. Just friendly chat really, and we're just opening, honest and conversation about things, and it helps probably. And the day my dad's like to me, watch Charlie Adam doesn't shoot for half area and watch he doesn't shoot for the corners. So I know Dad, I've watched him play for years. Delighted. Obviously that's the most important thing, and all the players' families will be, like the rest of the fans, will be delighted today. Of course, you've seen that in the last couple of years with Deck and Sod here, and there's other internationals here as well. There's loads of other internationals that have been here and came and gone. So it's a great platform to play, great stadium to play, great atmosphere here today, and unbelievable surface to play on as well. So we've got everything we can ask for, and we're just delighted we send all the fans home happy today, and hopefully all the boys enjoy their break now.
That's all we've got time for on this. We hope you have enjoyed. This will be the first video you see today. We'll also do a reaction to the Scotland game against Denmark later on this evening, so do keep an eye out for that. We'll also have reaction to the transfer window that is literally shutting in England, at least as I record this, and it'll be shut as you watch this in Scotland as well. And we'll be looking at a particular transfer in detail, because we'll be speaking to one of the guys who has made a deadline day move, and it's one of the bigger ones. So do check that out when that's out Thursday. As well as that, we will also have an in-depth chat review, if you will, of Hearts' fan ownership transfer to the foundation at Hearts. Spoke to people like Anne Budge, Hearts chairwoman, and Andrew McKinley, CEO, as well, on Monday. So we'll have a big video on that on Friday, ahead of our Scotland Moldova reaction on the Saturday, a wee break, and then back into the Scotland reactions next week before we start the Premiership. So it's very busy, and it would help us out massively if you did subscribe to the channel, pushing for 1,000. And the quicker we get there, the better, and that can help us out bringing this type of content to you. But that's all from me just now, and until next time, take it easy.